It's time now to review headlines of today's newspapers. And of course, we're going to start with this day, the paper on record, Mr. Steve.
The newspaper on record this day on Saturday. Yes, we go straight into the newspaper review. And we start, of course, with the lead story, Recapitalization Hurdle. Access Holdings announces $1.5 billion capital raising program. The riders, analysts, bankers welcome exercise in banking sector. Fault exclusion of retained earnings. Say directive will strengthen financial institutions, foresee mergers, acquisitions. CBN law enforcement agencies to monitor exercise. I mean, this speaks directly to one of the key stories that we did on the week that was.
Yes.
And this is one of the top 3, top 5 banks in Nigeria, Access, of course, using the holding complaint to be proactive. And this is, I think this is also good, given what has happened to Access lately, with the very sad and tragic departure of Hebatu Igwe. But now we have High Imokwede back in the saddle as the chair of the holdings, and here they're saying that that it's not a hurdle that Access cannot cross, and that they have started a $1.5 billion capital raising program.
Definitely. I think it's amazing. And I think especially because the recapitalization rules in this program are quite strict. They've limited how the banks are going to be allowed to recapitalize.
Yes.
And obviously it's also to prevent fraud and, players entering the system, non-bad meaning players entering the system. So it is good to see proactiveness from Access Bank Holdings. And I would expect to see it from similar banks of that size, more news coming out soon.
Yes.
But again, as I said, I'm very excited. Kudos to Mr. Cardoso.
I mean, this will put other banks, of course, on their toes.
Yes.
But that is important, given the report of the 2023 banking year by Ernst & Young, saying that not all the banks, have the sort of strength, that we should expect. And that 7 out of the lot, seem to be those that are, that are solid, rock solid. But of course, the 2023 assessment may not necessarily be. It will be useful, it will be important, but of course, we're in 2024, we're entering Q2, and the banks have up to 2 years to recapitalize.
Definitely.
So we shouldn't use that alone, to judge how banks will move. But I think this is important, and given what you also said about the stringent conditions, it is good that this day here is saying that the CBN itself and law enforcement agencies will monitor, the exercise. And I like the fact that analysts, bankers are welcoming this, and they're saying that it will strengthen the financial institutions. And of course, as we said earlier, mergers and acquisitions are inevitable.
Yes.
Inevitable.
Yes.
How that will affect the torokobos, as people will say, of average Nigerians, of you and I. I mean, we will see things unfold, particularly in 2026, going to 2027, when all these things will have taken shape.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a good time to invest in some of these shares.
And for lawyers who specialize in mergers and acquisitions, wouldn't it be a good time for them?
Wouldn't it be a great time?
To practice. Okay, other stories. The story beside the first picture, in birthday phone call, Buhari says he stands with Tinubu. And as you know, that the president clocked 72 on Friday, March the 29th. I think that would be the third year in a row that the president wouldn't have like an elaborate kind of celebrations. But interestingly, in spite of what he said, that he wouldn't want any newspaper adverts, he wouldn't want anybody congratulating and stuff, we still saw that there was an entity, a security entity, that placed front page adverts in a number of newspapers, against the president's wishes. I'm not sure how the presidency will take that.
Well, happy birthday to our president. He
absolutely
turned
to the president is 72.
Okay.
He's 72,
yes.
right? He's 72. So, so President Buhari, former President Buhari, is saying that he stands with President Tinubu. I think that's a good one. 10 months going to 11 after Tinubu took over from Buhari. I think we have not at least had any
issues,
anything that would suggest rancor, anything that would suggest. This is not the first time that even President Buhari will be saying that he endorses everything that President Tinubu is saying. So congratulations to the president. Happy birthday to him, and we wish him a long life in good health. And of course, we hope that all these reforms will succeed so that Nigeria can be better under his reign. On top of the masthead, soldiers killing wanted Delta monarch flown to Abuja for interrogation. That story is on page 5. And we already had a news report on that even today. And on the window, Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, raising MPR further will worsen access to credit, manufacturing competitiveness. And the rider, CBN, $1.5 billion attracted into economy on the back of monetary tightening regime. I mean, there's no gainsaying the fact that from the perspective of manufacturers, which is why MAN is saying this, raising MPR further will worsen access to credit. I mean, no economy functions without access to finance, without access to credit. Well, at 24 plus percent to borrow money, that's killing. Don't let us sugarcoat it. That will stifle production.
Well, on the other hand, we do hope that with the recapitalization of banks, and if we do have 2 years' time, but we do have what we are having is more foreign direct investment coming into the country. So hopefully, pressures on the naira, will reduce. Hopefully, our naira would improve. And if inflation does go down in the long term, if our banks are recapitalized, more willing to give out loans, then it might be a tough short-term issue for manufacturers, but then they might be better off in 2 years. Now, obviously, for anyone who is in business, you don't want to have any 2-year dark times. But also for the sanctity of the naira and for the safety of our country's economy, which right now we're sacrificing growth in order to curb this inflationary issues, we might go into a recession. And so we are teetering in very dangerous waters here. But I do want to say, you did say that
recessions can be survived, and
they can be, and we have survived them. So as you said, they are tough decisions, but they might be necessary decisions, and there will always be somebody who's
but part of
losing out.
Of taking tough decisions will also be to revisit certain policies that might have been taken in a hurry without deep thinking. And the way to look at it would be that in 10 years of this administration, apart from the palliatives that have been handed over, what has the common man gained as succor against this very harsh, this very business killing, life threatening policy? So when you now say, okay, in 2 years maybe things will get better, and let's see whether by the time banks will capitalize, you have more access to credit. I mean, that's stretching. That's stretching the endurance. For most Nigerians.
I do agree.
I'm just saying that we can have a broader
view on it.
View on how things can work
I agree
better.
with you.
Governments are in position, essentially for the welfare and security of the people. No matter how beautiful your policies might be on paper, or that they will be in future. Think of today and the survival of the common man.
I think that is an excellent point, especially because you talk about we have a need for structure, especially when it comes to the federal government and how they actually implement all these things that they are doing. Because to my absolute dismay, the president has announced yet another committee, yet another council.
There are 3 actually.
The president
heading one himself.
Yes.
31 member committee.
So we have a lot of committees and think tanks, and yes, we see very little output.
Sadly.
And what we need is a government that is efficient and is direct and that it thinks about those people first. And so I agree with you there that the CBN is doing their part. However, the federal government as a whole needs to do more. They need to do a lot more targeted intervention.
I think this also speaks to what Mr. Akinshitoku was trying to say, that when you mentioned the difference between Senegal and Nigeria, we had a few years after winning election to being sworn in. Unlike Senegal, that in a matter of days, you become the president. So what Mr. Akin was also trying to say was that you had all these months since you won the election. You knew the key issues, particularly the issue of subsidy and removal and floating of the naira, that, maybe it would have been better, to have thought them through rather than, announce something that was not on your script, on your prepared speech on day one, and then we are now doing catch up. And we're now running after it. But
definitely. and it does seem that these things that were announced, the removal of subsidies, that in truth, the subsidy is back. The PMS is still being subsidized.
Nobody has confirmed that.
Oh, okay. Well, we can say it's alleged that subsidy is being subsidized.
One more story on the cover of this day, and this one, of course, interests me, deeply. A trailer of Wole Soyinka's "The Man Died" unveiled. That's on page 14 of today's this day on Saturday. I was at the IREP. I represent International Documentary Film Festival that ended last Sunday in Lagos, and that was where the unveiling of this trailer was done. First at the Macadenuga Center, Alliance Francaise, and then at the Freedom Park where the festival held. The film will come out in July of this year, directed by Professor Anwangpa, about the life of Professor Wole Soyinka. You see actor Wale Ojo playing beautifully well as Wole Soyinka. Sam Dede, Dr. Sam Dede, a whole, load of people. Beautiful film, well crafted, well done. So I think that this is one film that many people should look forward to as it concerns the life of one of the best intellectuals ever in Nigeria, Professor Wole Soyinka. The two cover pictures are important. The first one, of course, you have the president and his deputy with the Senate President, Senator Jubril Barau, at the Jumat prayer to commemorate the 72nd birthday of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the National Mosque in Abuja. That was yesterday. And of course, Passion of Christ drama, given that this is the time of Easter. Station of the Cross drama at St. Leo's Catholic Church on Toyin Street in Ikeja to mark the 2024 Good Friday celebration in Lagos. Again, that was also
St. Leo's Catholic Church. I have a lot of memories from there. That's my grandfather's church. That was my
really?
Yeah, that was my grandfather's church before he passed. So let's move on to The Guardian on a Saturday. There, right below the masthead, the top, the story for Guardian Women on page 15. Cherry Ozualo, resilience, determination, dictate a woman's success. I cannot agree more. You must be very resilient as a Nigerian woman to be successful. Next to that, another important story, NSCDC female squad and combating wave of kidnapping school children. The rest of that feature is on page 4. We have spoken about the kidnapping of school children earlier today. It's incredibly important. The main story we have on The Guardian is why illicit drug business still booms in Nigeria. And that story, my apologies, is on page 2.
Yeah.
I mean, drug business, isn't it? We saw recently a seizure of, I believe it was, we saw a recent drug seizure from a boat, I believe, from the Benin Republic. Large volumes of drugs. The picture here shows large volumes of different illicit substances, which have, I'm assuming, being seized by Nigerian authorities.
Why are the drugs surrounding the DG of NDLEA?
Well, maybe
General Marwa.
Yes,
who has done quite well, by the way. We've not been hearing so much lately as we used to.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
I think there is a case here to maybe show the effectiveness of the seizures. Is to just show the large volume, because this is a large volume of drugs that we are seeing here on the front page. Now, below these stories, we have aggrieved LP stakeholders applaud INEC for disclaiming last Wednesday's convention. Obviously, we did speak about that with Mr. Oshutoko earlier.
Because of the kangaroo convention.
Yes, there is crisis in the Labour Party, so we're going to see how that plays out for them.
You remember that we also asked GRV, Gbadebo Revival, last Sunday when he came on the show, and he was a bit stylishly dismissive of it, that, oh, it's politics, you know, it happens in all the parties. But here we are, the convention that he endorsed is now being described as a kangaroo election, convention. I hope that Labour will get his act together. Labour Party, that is.
The Labour Party. Oh, not the NLC.
Not the NLC.
Well, we have here another crisis, but this one, my home state of Edo State, where impeachment panel investigating Edo Deputy Governor to commence sitting April 3rd. Now, that is on page 3. Shaibu, the Deputy Governor of Edo State, had his own kangaroo primaries, I would call it.
When he rains, he pours, isn't it?
I mean, this is not surprising. It was announced that there were going to be impeachment proceedings. It's also not surprising considering that he had a falling out with the governor Obaseki.
It's a shame, though. I mean, given the tag team that they were and how they succeeded in fighting the Godfather that Oshiomhole, represented us at that time. I mean, even if you are not going to hand over to your deputy, I will imagine that, that maybe the governor will at least be magnanimous to at least let him,
finish his term. I understand that, but at the same time, Shaibu did begin to talk about how PDP would lose the elections if he wasn't given the ticket, how he would work against the party within the state.
And that's why he shouldn't remain as
I'm not saying
governor.
that's why he shouldn't remain, but I'm saying that the State House of Assembly members who are part of his party that he's now actively working against may not have taken very likely to his comments.
I don't think this is about the House of Assembly. I think it's about the governor.
There is a party structure. I would say Easter, Tinubu, Makinde, Ganduje, others call for selfless service to the nation. That story is on page 3. I will say that call is coming from inside the house. I hope they are telling themselves more than they are telling the people of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
That there needs to be...
The message should be for everybody, including those in power and those who are being paid by taxpayers' money. I
want to take one more story here because I really want to see what you have to say about this.
What's that?
Tinubu set to break 40-year jinx on Mambila hydropower project.
We wish him all the best. He should break the jinx. He should go for it. There are areas where the president should concentrate on. Where there are entrenched interests. It's just that many Nigerians have not been reassured in terms of the capacity within the power ministry. Let's hope that if the president supervises directly and he shows interest, maybe things will change. But for Mambila, let him go for it, please.
He should definitely. There were some news that came out about maybe corrupt practices with Mambila in the previous years, but the best of luck to the president and obviously to our Minister of Power.
He has our support. He has our support on that,
definitely.
Really. And Minister Bayo Adelabu should also, our friend and our brother he should rise to the occasion. A lot of people are complaining about that ministry. We'll go very quickly to Saturday Telegraph. Interesting stories here and there. We've treated what the paper leads with, which is on page 3, recapitalization. Central Bank defense policy, why Apex banks won't recognize retained earnings as capital. These they also led with that and a few other papers. Also, the story on CBN, economy attracts 1.5 billion inflow post MPC. We've also treated that. But there are a few other stories that are fresh here. First is the one on the window about Lekan Balogun's daughter. After rejection, my grandfather predicted one of his sons will become Olubadan. That's the daughter of the Olubadan of Ibadan that just passed on, making reflections on what led to her dad becoming the traditional monarch of Ibadan land. There's also another story that is quite interesting, which will be of concern to a lot of Nigerians. Data breach. NIN registration faces hiccups as NIMC bars agents. NCC individual has over 10,000 lines linked with NIN. I think that, of course, with the picture of the Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Ojo there, I think this is a call to action to him to say that this is not just about the fact that people can get passports in 24 or 48 hours. That is not your only job.
Yes. And I mean, that passport in 24 or 48 hours is not for all Nigerians. I believe
that's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah,
I see a lot of PR, deliberate PR being done about that, but then I still hear a lot of people are saying that, don't believe all these things. I think that we shouldn't make this a propaganda issue.
Definitely.
There has been tremendous improvement, but then a lot of people are still struggling, and the corruption that is endemic in that part of the operations of that ministry is still there.
Yes,
it should look to
us. We shouldn't pretend it's gone. I believe Nigerians in Dubai have not been able to get passport for weeks on end. So let's focus on actually getting a job instead of pretending.
Even those who are applying either for fresh passport or for renewal are not getting the 48-hour treatment in Nigeria. That's part of the thing that the minister should look into, the same way that he should look into this NIN registration hiccups issue. I think it's important. Explosion rocks Abuja suburb. That story is on page 3 of today's Saturday Telegraph. And insecurity dangerous, injurious to democracy. Ejiofor Amakri. That's on page 9 of today's paper. Maybe very quickly, a story that will interest you, isn't it, Adesua? Saturday Vanguard, if we have time for the Sun. I'm sure that you must have noticed something on the cover of Saturday Vanguard. You remember that last week we spoke about the fact that how come it's beautiful but scantily dressed females that are on the cover of the paper, almost every week. But here is the editor of the Saturday, Vanguard, one of the brilliant minds as editors in Nigeria, taking to your correction, our advice to say that we can have a beautiful Saturday paper without looking at cleavages and without looking at, you know what I mean. So, but the stories are also important. They are focusing on Okwama, how soldiers fell to suspected mercenaries, oil bunkers. That story is on page 9 to 11 of today's paper. And oil theft induced violence led to killing. They also have something on Labour Party crisis, obedience, more options ahead of 2027. Obi silence explain. And last but not the least, Funke Akindele nominated as battle for AMVCA begins. That is coming up in May, but it's one of I saw the nominations for the AMVCAs, and there's a lot to be proud of there. I will say one of my short film I love has been nominated, but also something that was missing is the people who do the music, the people who do the sounds for the films. I think I read an interview where a lady expressed that worry. Akinkube, yes, Miss Akinkube. I think Kalinde Akinkube. She's an artist, but she does sound. She did the music for the Shashara movie that's on Amazon Prime with Eku Edewo, and I believe that she did the scoring and the original score, and it also shows that there's a lot of work being done to elevate Nigerian cinema beyond just the people in front of the camera. Soundtrack is an important component of filmmaking. So I think that AMVCA, particularly the head of the jury, Mr. Femi Odugbemi, brilliant filmmaker, one of our very best, will also look into that to make sure that no professional is left uncelebrated when it comes to I would say I think we should take the last story on the Saturday Sun before we go. Adebanjo opens up on Tinubu's second term. Nnamdi Kanu, Afenifere restructuring others. I think people should probably pick up the Sun and read that story. Absolutely, we have to run.